Everyone celebrated when I retired. There were balloons, a cake, a card with 50 signatures, and everyone said, "You did it. You're free." Nobody told me that the following Monday morning, I would sit at my kitchen table, coffee going cold, sun barely up, and not know what to do with myself.
Okay, I was not prepared for that opening to land the way it did. Hi, I'm Ashley.
I'm Ryan. Welcome to Honestly English. Real conversations, real English, real life.
And today, we are going into territory that almost nobody discusses with full honesty. What actually happens to a person when retirement arrives? Not the financial planning, not the 401k math, not the budget spreadsheet. The human part. The part they never put in the retirement brochure.
Because retirement is one of the biggest life transitions a person goes through, and we have built an entire industry around preparing financially for it, which, yes, matters enormously, but almost nobody prepares for the emotional side, the identity side, the who am I now side. And that gap costs people years of real happiness.
And I'll say this up front. Ryan and I are not retired. We're nowhere near it. But this conversation lives inside every one of us, because either we're watching someone we love go through it right now, or we're heading toward it ourselves. And there is a moment coming up in this episode, something Ryan's dad said to him, that actually made me stop mid-conversation. I'm not going to say it yet, but it is worth staying for.
That's a good tease. Let's actually get into it. So I want to start with a reframe that I think is the foundation of everything we're going to talk about today. Most people, and I mean people who are planning retirement, people already in it, financial advisors, family members, most people treat retirement as a destination. And that framing, I think, is where almost everything goes wrong.
What do you mean by destination versus what's the alternative?
The alternative is treating retirement as a transition. And those two things feel similar when you say them out loud, but they're psychologically very different. A destination is somewhere you arrive, and then you settle. A transition is a process. It has duration. It has discomfort. It has an in-between phase that you actually have to move through. And the research is very clear. The people who treat retirement as a process, who expect the discomfort, who plan for the adjustment, they move through it faster and more successfully than the people who expected to just arrive at happiness on day one.
And I think the culture really does sell it as a destination. The party, the plaque, the handshakes, the congratulations, and then everyone goes home. And suddenly you're standing in your own kitchen with absolutely no agenda and no one telling you where to be.
And that kitchen moment, the first ordinary morning, I think that's the moment that breaks people. Or rather, that's the moment that reveals how unprepared most of us actually are. Because here is what psychology tells us. Human beings are genuinely neurologically wired for purpose. Not as a nice idea, literally. There is a structure in the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that governs goal-directed behavior. It runs on targets, deadlines, problems to solve, contributions to make. And when the external structure that was providing all of those things just stops, that part of the brain doesn't know what to do.
So you're saying it's not just an emotional feeling of I'm lost. It's an actual biological disorientation.
Biological, neurological. And the data supports this completely. The Institute of Economic Affairs published research showing that retirement increases the probability of clinical depression by roughly 40%, and the likelihood of a diagnosed physical illness by around 60%, within the first couple of years.
60%. I don't think people realize how serious that is. You're not talking about feeling a little down. You're talking about real, measurable health consequences.
Real and measurable. And here's the thing I want people to really absorb. This is not a failure of character. If you are someone who has retired and found it much harder than you expected, or if you are watching a parent or a partner go through this right now, that difficulty is documented. It is known. It is a completely predictable human response to a major identity shift. And the word identity is really at the heart of this.
Because I think we underestimate how much of our identity is tangled up in what we do for work. Like, we say I'm more than my job, and I think most people genuinely believe that. But 30 or 40 years of daily repetition that's a lot of wiring.
It's an enormous amount of wiring. And there's a psychological theory that explains exactly why. It's called role identity theory, developed by a sociologist named Sheldon Stryker. The core idea is that we don't have one single identity. We have a hierarchy of identities built around the roles we hold. You are a parent, a professional, a colleague, a leader, a neighbor, and those roles are stacked in order of how central they are to your sense of self. And your job, especially in a career that spanned decades, is almost certainly near the top of that stack.
So when the job ends, it's not like losing one piece of a puzzle. It's like the piece that the whole picture was organized around suddenly isn't there anymore.
That's exactly it. And what makes it harder is that retirement doesn't just remove the role, it removes everything that came with the role. The routine, the status, the social connections, the sense of contribution, the built-in reason to get up every single morning. All of that goes at once.
And I don't think people grieve it because they feel like they're not supposed to. Like, you worked your whole life for this. The world is throwing you a party. If you feel sad, you must be doing something wrong.
And that is such an important point. Because the silence around that grief, the inability to say, "I'm struggling," when everyone expects you to be thrilled, actually makes the whole adjustment significantly harder. You're not just dealing with the loss, you're dealing with the loss alone, because no one gave you permission to feel it.
My mom retired 3 years ago. She was a school principal for 22 years. And in the months leading up to it, she kept saying, "I just want to be free. I just want time that's mine." And I completely understood that. She was exhausted. She had given everything to that school.
And then?
And then, about 6 weeks in, she called me. And she said, "Ashley, I don't know what to do with my hands." And I didn't fully understand what she meant at the time. I thought she was just bored. But it was something so much deeper than boredom.
That sentence is one of the most honest descriptions of early retirement I have ever heard. I don't know what to do with my hands. Because her hands knew the schedule, her body knew the rhythm, and the rhythm stopped, and she was left standing inside a freedom that hadn't shown her yet what it was for.
And that's the distinction you were building toward, right? Because I've heard you talk about this, retiring from something versus retiring to something.
Yes, and I think this might be the single most important insight in this entire conversation. Retiring from something means you are moving away. All right, let's get practical, because I think that section gave us the why. And now people need the what do I actually do? So let's walk through this together.
Yes, let's build something useful.
Tip 1. Design your new routine before retirement day, not after. This one sounds simple, and almost nobody does it. Most retirement planning is financial. Pension, savings, investments, budget, which is all necessary. But what's almost completely missing is behavioral planning. What does your Wednesday look like? Your Saturday morning? Your average Tuesday with nowhere to be? If you arrive at retirement without an answer to those questions, The first week is going to feel like falling off a cliff.
And I have seen this firsthand. My aunt retired 2 years ago. She was a nurse for 30 years, and she told me she spent 2 months before her last shift just drafting what her week would look like. Not hour by hour, but anchor points. Monday and Thursday, she volunteers at the community health clinic. Wednesday morning is her art class. Friday is a standing lunch with her closest friends. And she told me recently, I feel more like myself than I have in 15 years. And I think the routine is a huge part of that.
The anchor points. That's the language I love. You don't need to schedule every hour. You need enough structure to give your days a shape. And the beautiful part is, you finally get to choose the anchors. You're not working inside someone else's framework anymore. You're building your own. That is what real freedom actually looks like in practice.
Okay, tip 2. And this one I feel very strongly about. Don't cut ties with your professional world all at once. Because a lot of people hit their last day at work and mentally slam the door. And I understand why. If you're burned out, if you're done, the last thing you want to think about is anything connected to that world. But there is a real cost to cold turkey separation from a professional identity that you spent decades building.
And this is where things like consulting, mentoring, or even staying loosely adjacent to your field can make the adjustment so much smoother. Not because you need the income, but because your expertise, your experience, your knowledge, those things did not retire with you. They are still yours. And letting them contribute, even in a reduced and voluntary way, keeps that part of you alive, while the rest of you figures out the next chapter.
Step back, don't slam the door, because you can always close it further later. But slamming it on day one and then regretting it is a much harder thing to undo.
Tip 3. Invest in your social life with the same seriousness you invested in your career. Because here is something that genuinely surprises people. Work provides an enormous amount of your social connection automatically. Colleagues, meetings, team conversations, the social texture of daily professional life. You don't have to try to have people around you when you work. It just happens.
And retirement removes that scaffolding almost entirely. And I don't want to be alarmist, but the research on loneliness and health is genuinely alarming. Social isolation, not just feeling lonely, but actually being structurally cut off from regular human contact, is linked to outcomes as serious as heart disease and significantly shortened life expectancy. This isn't a soft issue. This is a health crisis in slow motion for a lot of retirees.
Which means the proactive move, before retirement or as early as possible into it, is to deliberately build and nurture the relationships and communities that don't depend on your job for their existence. Join things. Say yes to things you'd normally decline. Show up consistently to the same places. Because the friendships you build now become the foundation of your well-being for decades to come.
And honestly, if this kind of conversation is giving you something real, something that's making you think differently about your own life or someone you love, subscribe to Honestly English. We do this every Tuesday and Friday, and we'd love for you to be part of it.
Seamlessly delivered.
Thank you. Okay, tip 4. Take this one, because it connects directly to what your dad said.
Yeah. Tip 4 is understand the difference between being busy and being purposeful. Because I think a lot of retirees stay very busy. Golf, grandkids, home projects, travel. The calendar gets full, and from the outside, everything looks great. And none of those things are wrong. They're all wonderful. But busy is not the same as purposeful. Busy keeps the clock moving. Purposeful gives the clock a reason to move. And when my dad talked about the plaque not coming with a reason to get up, that's what he was describing. His days were full, but something essential was missing.
And I think the word contribution is really the key here. It doesn't have to be grand. You don't have to start a nonprofit or climb a mountain or have a second career. But there needs to be something. Something where someone else's day is a little better, a little richer, because you showed up. That's the feeling that keeps us human.
And finding your version of that contribution, that's not something someone can hand you. It's something you discover by trying things, showing up, saying yes, and paying attention to what makes you feel genuinely useful. Which is why I always say, when you retire, don't just ask yourself what you want to do. Ask yourself who you want to matter to, because that question points you somewhere real.
I love that question. Who do you want to matter to? Because that completely changes the search. You're not looking for a hobby to fill the hours. You're looking for a recipient of your effort. And that is a very different frame.
My grandfather on my mother's side, he retired from the post office after 28 years. And his version of contribution was this. Every Saturday morning, he set up a chessboard at the table in his front yard, and he taught the neighborhood kids how to play. That was it. That was his thing. And he talked about those Saturday mornings with more pride than anything else in his entire career.
Contribution at human scale. Because I think we convince ourselves it has to be big. But the retired nurse who mentors nursing students, the retired teacher who tutors kids on Thursday afternoons, the retired carpenter who builds bookshelves for the local library. These are lives full of real fulfillment, and they're within reach for almost everyone.
Tip 5. And I want to give this one to Brielle because I genuinely think she'll say it better than me.
Tip 5 is, give yourself permission to grieve the career without being ashamed of it. Because I think this is the emotional truth underneath every other tip we've given today. Retirement is a real loss. Even if you wanted it, even if you planned it, even if you are so tired you could cry with relief on your last day, you are still walking away from something that gave your life shape and meaning for decades. And you are allowed to feel that. You are allowed to miss it. You are allowed to sit in your kitchen on a Monday morning and not know what to do with your hands, without treating that feeling as something to push past as fast as possible.
Because if you perform happiness, if you tell yourself, I should be grateful, I shouldn't feel this, you don't make the grief disappear. You just make it quiet. And quiet grief has a way of showing up in other places. Irritability, disconnection, a kind of flatness that doesn't have a name, but lives in you all the same.
Let it breathe. Let it move through you. Talk to someone, a partner, a friend, a professional, because this transition deserves to be treated with the same seriousness we give any other major life change. It is one of the biggest things a person can go through. And acknowledging that fully, honestly, is actually the fastest way through it.
So our question for you today is, when you imagined retirement, what did it look like? And how close is that to what you are actually living?
Honestly, when I imagined retirement, and I mean in the way you casually picture it when you're in your 20s, it was always this golden, completely open, obligation-free life. Long mornings, slow coffee, nowhere to be, just peace. And for a long time, that sounded like the dream. But sitting inside this conversation and thinking about my mom and your dad and everything we've talked about, I think what I actually want is something different. I want days that feel chosen. I want to still be creating, still be contributing, still be building something, even when I don't have to. I think the retirement I actually want isn't freedom from work. It's the freedom to do the work that truly matters to me. And that's a version of retirement I need to start thinking about now, not at 65. Because what surprised me most in this conversation is that retirement planning isn't just financial. It's philosophical. It's figuring out what a life well lived actually means to you before you get there.
Mine shifted in this conversation too. I always thought retirement was about stopping, that the goal was to get to the place where you didn't have to do anything anymore. But my dad's words have sat in me for 5 years now. The plaque doesn't come with a reason to get up in the morning. And what I think I'm taking from this, what I'm genuinely deciding right now, sitting here, is that I want to build the reason to get up long before I ever need the plaque. I want to arrive at retirement already knowing who I am when the title is gone, already deep in the next chapter, so that when I walk through that door, it's not an ending I'm stepping away from. It's a life I'm fully stepping into. Because the thing my dad didn't have, and the thing I want to build, is the ability to answer that Monday morning question with something real. Not a title, not a role, just a reason.
Tell us your answer in the comments. We read every one.
If today helped you, share it with someone who needs it. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday. See you next in the next episode.
You don't retire from life. You finally get to choose how to live it.